we think of love in the first place, the romantic love, but better yet, love in relationships, by our lovely couple, Andreia Marshall and Marcelo Netto. Andreia Marshall Netto was born in Campinas, São Paulo, Brazil, and has resided in the United States since 1991. Having been in contact with Spiritism in the United States from an early age, today she volunteers at the Conscious Living Spiritist Group in North Miami as Director of Operations and is also responsible for the Youth Department. As an active participant in the Spiritist movement, Andreia has volunteered and coordinated several events with the Spiritist Federation in Florida, and today serves as the Marketing Director for this group. In the dissemination of the Spiritist teachings, Andreia represents 10th U.S. of America, a Spiritist publisher affiliated to the International Spiritist Council, publisher in Brazil, serving the U.S., Canada, and other countries.
Marcelo Netto has a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering. He was born and raised in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. He has resided in the United States since 1997. Marcelo is co-founder of the Conscious Living Spiritist Group in North Miami, where he serves as vice president of the board of directors. I noticed you're vice president. Sorry. As an active supporter of the Spiritist movement, he is also the current vice president of Spiritist Federation of Florida. In the dissemination of Spiritist books in the United States and Canada, he is the president of 10th U.S. of America and affiliated branch of the International Spiritist Council, publisher in Brazil, and Leo publisher. We're glad to welcome them. Please, come on.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, everyone. As you can see, we need like a couple to get the task to deliver a lecture, because what we've been seeing are so wonderful works throughout this day. All the speakers, all the elements, and all the teachings that they brought to us, and the direction of the United States Spiritist Council, I think, thought wisely to put two instead of one, because all the other speakers worth like not only two, but they worth like a million hearts.
Well, before we begin, I wanted to dedicate our talk today, Love in Relationships. Has it been changed, the slide? To every couple present here today, those that are newlywed, those that have been married for a long time, those that are planning on getting married, and those that will find their partner in life. But especially today, I would like to ask for your permission to dedicate this talk especially to a very kind soul that I have met in the Spiritist movement. I have seen his face in several states with Spiritist events happening. He's someone who was married to Marianne Oberg for 41 years. Today, he sits among us, Marianne, in her other schedule, waiting for him in the spiritual realm, is a true proof that in reality, true loving ties remain strengthened and strong while he's here and she's there. So congratulations, Bob, for being here, and may you always be encouraged in maintaining this love that unites you to Marianne's heart. A couple celebrating their 65th year anniversary was once asked, what was the secret to their everlasting marriage? I was interested in the answer that they had to provide, We just completed 5 years married. We have 60 years to go. And so her answer was one that offers us a moment of reflection. She says, "We were born at a time when if something was broken, we would fix it, not throw it away." Obviously, she wasn't talking about material things, as in a new refrigerator, hint, hint. She was talking about something much more valuable, relationship. As I was standing in the back of the room, I was paying attention to the people right here and right now. I must confess that after Daniel's talk, I saw him embracing my husband, and then they had a little moment of a group hug, and I myself became emotional. What is it about love? Love, according to the Spiritist teaching, the sustenance of life, of the Spirit. And so it's something that is very profound. And although we could take everything that we are going to say here today and apply it in different relationships, we are going to focus on the love in conjugal relationships. In preparing for this study, I remember about a page that I found on Facebook of a couple named Rory and Joey Feek. Some of you might have followed them on Facebook. They're aspiring country singers. And Joey and Rory had been married for 13 years. They had what most of us hope for when we first say our I do's. They had the kind of relationship that wasn't perfect, but it was perfect for the two of them. And they had a very realistic view of what a perfect relationship had to do with. They knew that day by day, in the challenges that life naturally threw their way, the way to go through it was to hold each other's hand. And at the end of the day, turn the page to begin a clean one the following day. Well, life had its ups and downs, and the first major down that came as a surprise was when Joey became pregnant, and they delivered a child that was going to try their love even further. The child had Down syndrome. Now, we know how challenging a child with special needs can be, but their love was so strong that they tried, or actually, they treated the child like there was nothing, no problem whatsoever. But it was because of the birth of the child that Joey realized that she was indeed sick. She was so sick in reality that after 2 years trying to battle cervical cancer, she was sent home with hospice care. Now, we can imagine the kind of fears that her husband was facing. I could imagine the kind of fears my own husband would face when faced with such a difficult situation. And in reading their blog, one of the things that caught my attention in thinking about bringing the difference between love and passion and love in relationships had to do with a blog that he wrote for Valentine's Day. Now, Valentine's Day, we know, one of the most romantic days of the year. Yes, we receive flowers, chocolate. I receive Funyuns because it's my favorite chip. So I got...
This is another story.
Yeah, it's just... it's my favorite chip. So he brought me flowers and Funyuns, which I thought was awesome. But you have to be us to understand that. And that's what we call intimacy in the relationship. And of course, we're going to talk about this as well. But Valentine's Day came around, and Rory wrote on the blog, of course, you know, my wife is confined to a bed, and obviously I can't take her out, and I can't buy her a fancy dinner because she can't really eat anymore. But what I can do is take her hand and take her on a virtual tour of our lives together. The first moments of our dates, our marriage, the birth of our child, and of course, I expect kisses. But not the passionate kisses that we once had, the soft kind that my wife can give. And that, to me, is enough. When I read that blog, I was overcome with emotions in seeing what love truly is. When we find someone, of course, passion is something that should be present, of course, but does it define our relationship? And how do we go from passion to love, the kind of love that held Joey and Rory together, the kind of love that sustained a 65-year marriage, the kind of love that we see in the presence of, can we change the slide, please, of Bob Oberg and Marianne. So love in relationships is what we are going to talk about here today. Is there passion in love or love and passion? Joana de Angelis was mentioned here often today. The book Life Challenges and Solution, available in Portuguese and soon to come out in English, gives us a chapter entitled Pathological Affection, in which she addresses the issue at hand regarding love and passion. The chapter entitled Pathological Affection talks about the aspect of unsettling behavior that assails humanity in the aspect of relationships. She states that people usually confuse love with passion, and that while that's nothing news to us, she brings about a point of view of the kind of repercussions that this may happen, and why so many people in our society feel that they are exhausted in the search for love. Some even claim to have given up. Please don't raise your hands. No one has given up on love, I hope, because it exists. She goes on to say that among the individuals that confuses the aspect of passion and love, there are those that have their affection as being selfish. They feel that the relationship is insatiable, and it borders on pathological jealousy, which they claim to be a demonstration of their love. And in the end, when the person actually does love them back, they feel that they're being pitied on. And the relationship that should be with love, that feeling that is liberating to the soul, that maintains harmony in the relationship, becomes a suffocating one, and the relationship certainly dies. Try to overwater a plant and see what happens. It drowns. And so she says, people are born to be free, and for that very reason, love is a liberating sentiment, and we're going to talk about the difference between sentiment and sensations that provides peace and joy. Because in reality, love in relationship has that unlimited capacity for understanding and tolerance. Marcelo can truly answer for that, right? That's true? Unlimited capacity for understanding and tolerance, unlimited capacity for being open and honest, something that I have no problem being in this relationship, and it never lessens when it's faced with difficulties because it has the resources to eliminate impediments and misunderstanding. Because it has these resources, these unlimited resources, Joana de Angelis states that this facilitates the process for dialogue, conversation, and how hard it is for human beings to express their feelings. When they're angry, they say that they're sad. When they're sad, they think that they're angry, and not being able to distinguish what it is that they're feeling. So it opens up the capacity for dialogue between the couple, so necessary for a healthy relationship. And she says that it actually also allows for consistency in the behavior in the relationship, loyalty, authenticity, and I would dare say intimacy. Now, Vanessa Anceloni spoke really well when she talked about lust in relationships. And although we can say that that's one of the aspects of the intimacy, we know by reading several research papers that that's not the only kind of intimacy that a couple can build when they have love in the relationship. Because anybody can have a physical intimacy, isn't that right? Anybody can change from one partner to the next, but are we courageous enough to develop intellectual intimacy, where we can hold dialogues, the ability to share, and the emotional intimacy, our fears, our desires, our needs, our frailties before our companion? And even more, are we willing to accept his or her frailties? I read one time, fall in love with someone who can help you unpack the baggage that you carry. And be willing to do the very same thing, because when we are exposed on an earthly life in a new incarnation, and we have a partner before us that will be a teacher also, not only a student, sometimes a great teacher, they're going to show us exactly where it is that we need to find strength to change, to better, to develop the potentialities of the soul. I will go further. The development of conflict intimacy and crisis intimacy, where both are willing to stand side by side and find the solutions for the challenges that we face on a daily basis. For that, a lot of time, people confuse the aspect of love and passion, living a life where they think that love should be a Hollywood movie. Isn't that right?
Right. That's right. Oftentimes, we see in our fraternal assistants in our centers, people that come to us asking for an advice. Recently, I received a lady, and she was sobbing, asking for one specific advice. And she was about to giving up love. She was jumping from one relationship to another, asking, I want someone to make me to feel happy. I want someone to complete me. I want someone to give me value for what I am value in life. And I was patiently listening to that conversation and everything that she was giving to us, to me at that specific moment. And I thought to myself, when I am going to see someone that shows up at the center asking, I simply want to meet someone that I want to love, not that I want to be loved. Because even though love is a both ways relationship, it is in giving that we receive. Relationships are a vast horizon in human nature. And we are far away from finding exactly the baggage that each one of us carry in our many existences. Because in fact, we all have one existence with many stages in life. Sometimes incarnated, sometimes discarnated. The ego plays an important and decisive role in our lives. And I decided, because we don't have, in any way, shape, or form, bring the solution for the relationships over here. But there is one starting point that we can all start and begins, which is the gospel of Jesus Christ. I know that I have, like others here, belonging to other religions, which is very fine, because at the core of our human essence resides something so profound and something so intense, because after all, we are all created equal, simple and with ignorance, like without knowledge, but in this pathway of learning and evolving constantly. Spiritist philosophy has a different view. Family ties has been a topic of many interest for many philosophers, and many studies has been developed throughout the world. But Spiritism brings something unique, something exclusive. And of course, we have, like other philosophies, that talk about reincarnation. But reincarnation is brought to us through the words of Allan Kardec, through the codification of Spiritism, in such a way that plays a very interesting and very decisive moment in our existence, so we can evolve constantly. So everything starts in relationships. It could be a family, which is the first cell of the society, because if the family goes wrong, goes bad, society goes bad. And we'll see how we teach our children, our daughters and our sons, how we are going to pass this to them, how we are going to influence their lives in order for us to change and switch from the romantic aspect to a more integral, more profound, seeing a different perspective in life, a new horizon that always being over here presented to us in different shapes, in different forms. And now, just like this veil is unfolded right before our eyes, we can see something much brighter and much lighter. Loving one another as we love ourselves. This is nothing new. I'm here not saying anything new that you heard. You saw wonderful speakers here bringing aspects of this beautiful Spiritist body of knowledge as Daniel brings to us. I love the way that he brings, because it's a body of knowledge, a self-knowledge, so we can unfold this veil that's right before us. And I decided to bring a portion of the first letter of the Corinthians that Paul wrote to the Corinthians in a very decisive moment. When Paul wrote this letter, the first letter to the Corinthians, he was talking about relationship overall. Because at that moment, moral debauchery and all the churches, the communities that he formed with the help of others, were simply falling apart. Corinthians was a unique city, very important in that specific project of dissemination of Christianity on the early ages of Christianity. On the year 55 AD, Anno Domini, or the Christian era, we will see something like this. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It is not rude. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no records of wrongs. It always protects, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails, because love is the par excellence sentiment of the Creator. And since we are the essence of the Creator, we have a destination in life, in all relationships, where resides the starting point, the initial, the 0 point, so we can see one day in this equation with so many variables in life, but with one result, which is love with capital letters. This letter was written in Greek, and he was saying the form love was agape, ego sagapo parapoli. Sagapo means I love you, and you should reply.
He said that to me.
Me too. But that's true. The way that he was writing this letter is like to directing this letter to the community that was formed. They were like gossiping. They're like fighting against each other. The communities, the relationships were simply falling apart. And we can migrate this letter, because this letter is oftentimes read in many vows. When people renew their vows, when people get married, many couples use this letter to simply sustain their relationship and strengthen their relationships.
But then, in the aspect of utilizing that beautiful letter that Paul wrote, and a lot of people think that it only has to do with conjugal marriage, the resources that Joanna Giangelis mentioned earlier is actually found on a little recipe for healthy relationships and living, found on question 886 of the Spirit's book, which, by the way, is available here. If those of you do not have it, make sure you get a copy. what is the true meaning of the word charity as Jesus understood it? So a lot of people will say, you know, charity begins at home, and that is true. We can be benevolent with people outside, indulgent with their imperfection, and even forgive those that may have somehow caused some mishap in our lives. But it's a lot harder to apply that at home, right? There's a case of a teenager. Givaldo was asked to speak with him because he was impossible. He was a terror. And the teenager decided to be open with Givaldo and say, you know, my parents come to the Spiritist Center, they work, they do all the public talks, and they conduct study groups, but at home, you need to see who they are. I mean, they're fakes. Imagine the kind of example that we have at home for those that we should be teaching what we are preaching. So it's really easy to be benevolent and indulgent and even forgiving with those that we really have no ties yet strengthened with. But in reality, if we understand relationships to be a tool for the betterment of the spirit, it is at home, in there, with our person that we have chosen to partake our lives with, that we need to begin addressing these questions that we have right here and utilizing the resources that we find in the Spiritist teaching. When it comes to love and relationships, one must also ponder about the difference between what Marcelo said here, sensations and feelings. For this, we went to the book Happy Life, which is beautiful, and Joana de Angeli begins by explaining to us the aspect of examining the sentiments that we carry in our hearts. She says, love is the tonic of life. This is how she begins. When centered on sex and the lower passions, it becomes a prison and no longer the uplifting, dignifying, and liberating sentiment that it really is. Examine your sentiments regarding love to see if they bring you peace or disharmony. By their nature, you will know if you actually love or merely desire. True love overcomes selfishness and always works on behalf of the loved one. Therefore, love without enslaving those to whom you are devoted or becoming enslaved to them. And of course, we can propose to be psychologists or truly profound experts on the subject at hand, especially with 4 minutes and 31 seconds to go that we have here before us. It's a really great organizing committee here. And so we decided to resort to the Code of Ethical Living, the Manual for the Immortal Spirit, the Gospel According to Spiritism. This is another book that is a must-read for study and understanding. On chapter 11, we are told by the benevolent spirit Lazar that love is what is summarizing Jesus' doctrine in its entirety, because it is and the "the" in the book is actually italic, is the sentiment par excellence, and sentiments or instincts raised to the high of degree of progress accomplished. And it will be in the relationships that we have where we will allow for this development of this highest degree accomplished within the spirit, this sentiment that is developed so well. So we have to ponder about this, for instance, because he says that at the beginning phases of the spirit, we find that we only have instincts. As we advance, we start having sensations, and then more educated and purified, we will have sentiments. And he finishes by saying, the exquisite apex of sentiment is love, but not love in the ordinary sense. Love that sustains life. Laura, in the book No Solar, in the aspect of learning about nourishment of life, states that the soul in and of itself is nourished only by love. And Vanessa Anceloni brought a scientific proof of that in the development of the brain of a child that is neglected versus a child that is enveloped with love. And we find that if we want our relationships to blossom, whatever they may be, and now I will step away from the aspect of conjugal marriage, we need to sustain it by feeding it with love, with understanding, with tolerance, and all of the other resources that are brought. It is no wonder that Jesus' recommendation, always talking about love, is of indisputable effectiveness because it is the generator of values that brings about responsibilities for the human life, for what we are supposed to do as we evolve. Love mellows individuals and incites them to uplifting attitudes about life. With that, I will let my lovely husband finish off with a message so that we can see how we can, applying the love and relationships, extend it to the whole for the betterment of our world.
The message that I am going to read, it's a simple message. And it's also from the book Happy Life. Love is life's greatest lesson. Without love, goals have no meaning, leaving people at the mercy of their lower passions. Love disperses negativity, shadows, and infuses gentleness into every act. Therefore, love everyone and everything. Practice love nature, resplendent in sun, air, water, trees, flowers, fruits, animals, and human beings. Let yourself be moved by the silent invitations that the Divine Father exceeds to you, and pour out your emotions on all things, softening yourself on the inside. The more you love, the less the claws of evil will reach you, for your heightened awareness will broaden your connection with life, and you will harvest only the effects of peace. There is a solution for all of us, because indeed, after all, in fact, we are all having a relationship in the Spiritist movement. And I would like to thank the United States Spiritist Council for this wonderful opportunity to promote the encounter of many relationships throughout the world, throughout this country, that embraces us so much and loves us so much. Thank you, Jussara. Thank you, the Board of Directors. Thank you to all of you. There is a solution for us. Let's all persevere, and we'll see joy very soon. Keep going, keep coming, and we'll see love. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.